there was a lot of things that I did, I think, that that were key along the way. One of the things was not walking into the building and saying, this is what we're doing and you're going to like it. Is really getting their input into it. And I think the big part of that, again, was creating the vision, and this is how we're going to do business here. And they saw the need for it. They saw, oh, well, that PLC, that's going to help us in what we need to do. And so that, I think, is a big piece in this puzzle of making sure that the staff, this is something that they think is going to be a useful tool to get you along the way. That being said, there's also at certain times where there's some things that aren't optional, you know, and I think that needs to be said too. But the whole idea of this collaborative culture, being the leader in the building and just setting the tone for that, and really listening to people when they're talking to you and taking the time out, not just during the staff meetings or the collaborative meetings that we have, but on one-on-one, on side notes. You know, how did that go for you, Carol? Was that, you know, I know we're talking about having the PLC in the building. How do you think that's going to impact your work? You know, is this going to be something you're going to be really comfortable with? And so doing that on a side note, so those people all come back together, makes it more powerful, I think. So.
Well, and I think that you really gave validation of the worth, because you yourself modeled, you're a part of it. You did those kinds of things where you had the students with your aides on the Friday that gave them, and so you really gave them that feeling of, we're in this together and we're going to make it happen. Now, what other kinds of resources did you have to draw from? And if there are no other, that's fine too, but...
No, there was definitely resources. I'll go back to, you know, one of my key supports was the nuts and bolts of building a PLC from Albertani on that webinar. He really set it up. There's allthingsplc.com that has different things on there that a person could look at that uses a resource. One of my biggest resources really was Dennis, again, having a coach I could call and reflect my ideas on. If you don't have that, I would say that you would need to try to find somebody, another principal in another building, or somebody, a professional colleague, to bounce ideas off of, to make sure that a lot of times we don't see some things in the road, whereas, you know, veterans can say, well, have you thought about this before you go into that meeting thinking you're going to do that? So that was definitely a key resource for me to have success.
And really, your own self-awareness of knowing you don't have to go it alone. And it's okay to be a risk taker. I mean, clearly you have shown evidence and that inner strength to make it go forward. So that really is great. Now, as we all know, if you don't have the support from the top and the superintendent, it's a very difficult situation to face. So can you sort of talk with us a little bit about that?
Well, you know, I kind of mentioned this earlier, that we didn't have, this wasn't going to be a district-wide thing. Because we just weren't there yet. I mean, you know, you have to be there, and not everybody was there. I felt like we were there, or we were close enough there that I was willing to try. You know, I was willing to say, I think we can get there. I think I have the staff that we can implement this, and we could be a model for our whole district. And so I went forth with to my super and asked him and said, this is what I would like to do in a building. I think this is going to be valuable. I'm willing to work with other people as well, other principals at other sites, if they want to get involved with this. I think the interesting aspect of this whole thing, when we're all done, is that now we kind of took that leap in the district. Now the English teachers have taken it upon themselves to start a PLC, and that came from my English teacher in my building, started to talk to other English teachers across the district. Now they're doing, the industrial arts folks they're having a PLC of their own, where they're starting to get their work to come together. So you can see the trickle effect here in the district. But they gave me what I needed, so that was very helpful.
So, so going back to that superintendent support kind of a piece, a question that's always going to be common and needs to be asked, did it really take any additional financial resources from the district? Did you have to give up something to get within your own budget within your district, or were you able to just kind of do some trade-offs and make it work?
Well, I could just basically do some trade-offs. There was nothing I needed financially from them to make this work. It would have been nice if we could have, if all the teachers could have been a part of that webinar, and we could have went there. That might have been something that we could have done together. But in my situation, there wasn't. I didn't need any financial support. It's something that you can do with no financial support, really. It just takes time, and it just takes to sit down and plan it out and go forth with it. So.
Mark.
Well, I would just say that PLCs, professional learning communities, can be very powerful. That's, for me, that is the lesson learned. And the thing is, I can't remember where I heard this or whatever, but when if you go to a doctor's office,
Oh, yeah.
and the doctor says, yeah, you're going to need open heart surgery, but don't worry, I've been doing this for 15 years, but don't worry, I do it. I know how to do it. I don't need to talk to any other professionals, and I've never talked to another doctor for the last 15 years about open heart surgery, but I know what I'm doing. You're going to walk right out that door because you want somebody who's been meeting with their colleagues and knows current best practices. And so we think education is that important. It's more important in the medical field. And so when you install that, people come together and realize that we have to come together. Our kids are worth it. We need to help each other. And so that's the biggest thing to get out of this, is that they are professionals. Teachers are professionals that have a lot to offer, and that most of the time our solutions are right in front of us, and that we don't need to go out and get the next best thing or whatever, that we have the power right in our own building to improve student learning. So that's the most powerful thing.
For the possibility of team teaching, which I never really thought about before, and now I'm kind of excited thinking about a lot of things to where I almost want to team teach with you, because I get to hear a lot of your ideas, and then it kind of progresses from that, okay, we've looked at each other in just the lens area, and we're not trying to evaluate each other, but knowing that I'm going to get a lot of good information from you, or that I have a lot of feedback going with that individual, and I feel comfortable enough that I would just walk into the classroom and say, hey, let's knock out this lesson, and we can both get the benefits of the social studies and the language arts, or the science and the math, or whatever it's going to be. And I think that's going to end up being very important for a lot of people if they start doing these PLCs. You're going to get a lot more out of teachers combining their efforts to maximize their time.
There's lots of things that I'm getting out of this. The things that I could see is like Pam, it's really kind of make me see the whole school instead of just only in my classroom, and coordinating with, a lot with Pam, and then hearing you guys talk about some of the things, problems that older kids are having, and it makes me look at my lesson plans, weekly lesson plans. Okay, these are some of the issues that are happening. I need to maybe focus more on that, or when I look at my lesson plans, and I, from what we, our meetings, and I say, okay, this is what I should be doing, getting the kids prepared for the upper grades. So this is what they're telling me, from hearing you guys. This is what they're is the problem areas, and maybe I need to focus on these areas.
Differently, if you could sit up there on that balcony, as Dr. Whiteley says, and look down and say, wow, wish I should have, could have, would have.
Well, yeah, there was a few, and I think that was, it had more to do with the fact that like I said, I was no expert in professional learning communities. So looking back, there's some things that I definitely would do differently. We had some staff members that maybe I should have spent some more side time with to make sure that they were ready. And that's a piece that if someone was going to implement they would need to think about that. But again, you can't wait for a perfect situation. If you wait for things to be perfect, the year's going to be over, and now you're looking at next year. And so you have to still move forward. And I guess, if, looking back at some of the things that I did, even though they were maybe not, the best, moving them forward was the best thing to do in my situation. So, but having that self-awareness, situational awareness especially, and knowing. But there are some collaborative meetings that that we should have had to maybe do a couple more steps in between. What I would have liked to have done was have a videoed copy of a professional learning community meeting, and having my staff been able to watch that, to really see that this is an example. This isn't a how-to. It's like you're teaching. I'm not expecting you to mimic the people in video, but this is how it could be done. This is how the work is done in other places. That would have been really helpful if I would have had that.
I just want to commend you on your leadership and what you're doing for our students in Alaska, modeling for other principals and leaders in our state. So thank you very much, and
Thank you.
look forward to working with you in lots of years ahead.
Well, thank you.